My name is Michael Zummo, and I'm the author of the Democracy Bible series, and I really appreciate everyone coming from today. I know we have people that have come from a long way, whether it be from Illinois or from Minneapolis, or even from here in town. It means so much for me to have you guys here and to get your support, so thank you very much. First, did everyone get a ticket for the door prize? So good? Okay. My son's been doing a great job of giving those out to everybody, but I think we have some really cool items, and when I get done with the presentation, we'll do the little reading of the numbers and figure out who gets what. And before I go too far, I just want to say special thanks to some people that made everything possible. A lot of work goes into books beyond just writing it, and so I wanted to give a couple of shout outs. The first one to Arlene Robinson. She's an amazing editor that has been with me for a number of books. She's really helped me to grow as a writer, and she's phenomenal to work with. Glenn Clovis is the person who is responsible for all of the 3D models and cover artwork that's been done. Just an amazing talent, again, so easy to work with. I have a group of beta readers that go through and read my stuff and give me feedback before you guys get to see it. So I'd like to give a couple of shout outs to my dad, Sam Zummo, my sister, Elizabeth Zummo, Matt Ferrara, Dan Proust, there it is, and Pat Conley, who of course can't be here today. And I also finally like to thank my friends at work who have put up with my countless times of talking about the cover and the story and getting feedback that helped lead to the things that you guys are going to be seeing today. So I guess looking back, it's kind of hard to believe that all of this started just 3 years ago, in August of 19 I'm getting older. 2013. Writing has become such a part of who I am and how I deal with the world that it's just hard to imagine not doing this or ever not doing it. I really love visiting the characters in my story universe. It doesn't sound too schizophrenic. I really see them not as my creations, but almost as friends that I get to kind of drop in on and observe and see what they're up to, and then document what I see. I know, though, that the things that happen in my own life directly influences all the things that happen there, and that kind of stitches into the story that unfolds. Since I launched my first book in August of 2013, I've sold over 4,000 copies. I have 7 awards that I've received, including 5-star rating awards and honorable mentions in both science fiction and youth science fiction categories. The books that I've released so far is, you can see the trilogy up here, the first 3. There's 2 novelettes that were released. Since they're novelettes, they're a little smaller. So we have Mind Walk and Alone Conspiracy. These 2 novelettes actually extended the story to the 3rd novel that I had. And then just recently, I released the omnibus. So this is just a fancy term that they have on places like Amazon for all of this stuff is in one collection. It's dissolved ebook into a physical print. Though it also included the 2 prologues to my next 2 novels. So it was not only content that was already released, but content that was yet to come. Thank you, Matt, for helping me with all the artwork to get these things done too. But today, we're here to talk about the newest work that I have, Democracy Bible, New Eden. It's already won 2 awards, a 5-star rating on Reader's Choice, and also a nomination for the Youth Science Fiction category. And you know, it's interesting when I think about this novel, it was really a surprise to me that it ever happened. The original trilogy was inspired by some fairly cataclysmic things that were happening in my life at the time, back in 1998. And I ended up finishing the manuscript that turned into all of these back in 2003. And for those that followed the story, and I won't give away too many spoilers for people who are currently reading, Rices Mankari, who's the main character, had lost his family, and through the course of the trilogy had dealt with the loss and had kind of moved on. And that's kind of where I left it in 2003, and I didn't think there was really more to the story. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do with the series. I was like, okay, well, this is really interesting. But I just kind of left it for a while. And I know that my life influences my writing. And, 2003 and on were not bad times in my life. I was actually doing pretty well and kind of happy, which is kind of nice. And I went back to my manuscript and I changed the ending. I actually put in the cliffhanger that is in there today about Russ's Minkari's family. And, but again, things were going well, and I usually write when I have stuff going on in my life, so I kind of put it aside. But then came 2010. I had kind of another major event in my life, a relationship that I was in for a long time kind of came to an end. It wasn't unexpected. I don't think it's ever truly unexpected, but it's never happy. But the silver lining on that is I was inspired to write some. So one of my many coping mechanisms was going to the gym. And on February 1st, 2010, and I know that for an exact date because of an email where I typed out this whole thing, I was at the gym listening to Lady Gaga and Beyonce's new Telephone song on repeat, which is the only sign of masculinity is to listen to Lady Gaga and Beyonce at the gym. And for some odd reason, I saw this scene about these three female leads for my story at a club. Now, people who are familiar with the song know that Telephone is all about kind of like leaving the guys behind and going out and dancing and stuff like that. So, it kind of makes sense of what the inspiration was. But it was really curious to me because those are three characters who, while they were interesting in the trilogy, were probably the least fleshed out. I had the least amount of understanding of those three particular characters, so I found it really curious about why were they showing up in this vision. So I wrote it down and I emailed it to myself, like I do when I get inspired by stuff. And 2 weeks later, I was at the gym listening to more of Lady Gaga's latest tunes, and another scene played out in my head. It was later on in some timeline, though I don't know what the real timeline was, I just knew it was later than the first one I saw. Same characters, and the difference was it was a battle that they were in against the squad of Nukari soldiers. The Nukari in my story are like the bad guys. And so I got home and I wrote it down, and like I always do, I start asking questions. Why? What is this about? Why were they being attacked? Like the Nukari had been kind of kicked around by the end of the third book. How were these three ladies in a position to be vulnerable to be attacked? So I started asking all these questions. And all of a sudden, this whole concept opened up in my mind of a whole new book. So I kind of plotted out the outline, and I found out that the ladies were actually on a side quest, trying to help a character that was presented at the end of the third book. There was going to be a revisiting of many of the locations from the original trilogy. There was going to be cleaning up of the remaining Nukari forces. There was going to be a hover bike racing sequence. There's going to be all kinds of betrayals that were going to happen. There's going to be new team members that were going to come into play. And one overriding theme was Rice's Minkari, who's the main protagonist, was going to be basically getting a constant beating through the entire book, some of which were self-imposed things. I also knew that the characters that kind of represented my ex and I in the story would be splitting up. And in mid-2011, I finished the manuscript, and it turned out to be really cool. I had a lot of fun writing it. It was kind of a good thing, but also a bad thing. Because I was in the middle of so much emotion that was going on with the end of this relationship, I channeled all of it, and it went right into the manuscript. And there were sections of conversations like between the two characters in the book that were reproductions, almost to the word, of things that I had with my former. It made the text very raw and extremely, if not overly, personal. So you fast forward to 2015. These books are all out, and I'm ready to start publishing the new one and getting it out and having people read it, I go through this process where I review the existing manuscript, I'll edit it, I'll get feedback from people. And I had some initial trepidation when I started because I knew what was in that manuscript. And this is 6 years later. Like, I didn't want to relive that stuff, right? Like, it's in the past. That's one of the benefits of writing it down and getting it out of you, is it's out of you. And you don't have to deal with that anymore. But what I found as I went through it was a new perspective. You know, I no longer, I guess, suffered from the emotion of the instance. And it transformed from exposing conversations between the characters that had this happening to them to Bryces Minkari and Osuto. Both of them are like the patriarchs of the Damak warriors, the father figures, observing what's happening to this couple and trying to figure out, as a team, as a family, how do we deal with this? How do we help them? How do we help us get through something that was going to definitely impact everybody, right? And I really liked that transformation. It felt mature, it felt healthier, it felt more interesting. It kept some of those really painful conversations that I had private. And honestly, you guys don't need to read that stuff. We all have drama in our lives. You know, I don't need to add to it. So I was really happy with how that transformed. Some of the other changes that happened, the initial 2 visions that I had of the ladies and their side quest, most of the detail about the side quest was removed. The material, and there is quite a bit of it, could literally turn into another novelette in the future. So that's good. I did think it was important to the main story, and the resolution of their side quest is actually in the main novel. So rather than having all of the details of what happened on the side quest, there's segments where you get updates from the team that's on the side. So you always know what they're up to, even though it's not verbose in the book. So I thought that was kind of an interesting change. As a writer, I can see my own style evolving over time, and this has certainly been my favorite book that I've released to date. There's so many places and so many unique things that happen. It extends the story and the threads for the characters and the places from the original trilogy, so it was fun to kind of revisit those things. There's all kinds of twists that I don't really see coming, and just to make sense of that comment, I can get like movie previews in my mind of what's going to happen, and that's where the outlines come from. But I don't know the details until I literally sit down and start writing. And the way that I write is I'll put on some music that's supposed to set the mood. It might be a sci-fi soundtrack or something more adventuring or instrumental. And a movie will literally start playing in my head. And I just document what I see, conversations that I hear, names that I hear. So I'm not really privy to all of the details of how something's going to play out until I do this. So like the twists that happen actually surprise me. You know, sometimes characters make decisions or things happen that I didn't expect and I wouldn't have done. But the characters did it, and that's what I like because I feel like I'm being really true to those characters. And so this was really fun to kind of see and record. And so in the end, and there's no spoilers with this, between the last chapter and the epilogue, there are 4 core threads that fire off. And those 4 threads turn into 2 spin-off series, a one-off book that's going to be focused on the character called Toriko, and then of course a direct continuance into the next Damak revival book itself. So what we're talking about here is the end of book 4 is the launching point for 4 new books, one of which I'm already working on, and I'm about 150 pages into it. So where do things stand with this series today? It's about 420,000 words large today. With the release of the next book, it will hit the 500,000 word mark. So we'll be at over 500,000 words. So it's quite a tome, and it's really fun. So the things that I wanted to announce today were the next book that I'm already working on is called Wiyun Academy. It's named after C.G. Wiyun, who is a major character of the first trilogy. It's a school that is set up to help people who have these Damak abilities, these superpowers, almost X-Men-ish kind of things. And it really focuses on the boy with the green eyes. And for the people that have read the series already, the boy with the green eyes shows up a number of times as someone who's kind of taunting the main character in his thoughts and in his dreams. You learn who the boy is, and without wrecking everything, this trilogy, Weon Academy, is about this boy's life. So kind of his rise to power and how he fits into the bigger dynamic of what's happening in the Demok universe. I mentioned that it's already 150 pages, and I'm hoping that it'll be released late next summer. And Matthew Ferrara and I have been working on some of the visualizations of the logo, and this is what we have currently for the main logo. It doesn't have the font on it yet for the word mark, but it kind of reflects the stone. CG as a character, her main ability was charging crystals and using it for different things. Green is the healing crystal. Red would be fire, and so on and so forth. And so this is supposed to kind of represent her and charging it, almost like two hands with the crystal. It would also be the emblem of the school. So this will be over at the table over there after the presentation. Bob Solom is going to be collecting feedback. So as you guys look at it, we'd love to find out more about what you think about it. If you like it, if it reminds you of other things, stuff like that, Bob will be able to answer more questions. The second thing is Hover Dome. Hover Dome is mentioned in the third book as a place where hover bike racing happens. It's a mobile coliseum, if you will, that gets configured in different ways for people to race their hover bikes. We are making a board game. Matt and I are actually working on this together now. So it's not just me, myself, and I. It's me, myself, and I, and Matt. We're a whole big team. It's awesome. We have actually taken it to a board game developers conference. We were able to show it to a number of designer peers as well as playtesters. We were able to do multiple iterations of the board game. I have amazing friends and coworkers that have been playing the game at work and giving me feedback there. The original game itself had already gone through like 80-something usability tests before it even got to this stage, so a lot of people have played it. It's a mature product, and we're looking to bring that out. The other thing that Bob will be collecting feedback on is the logo for that, Hover Dome, showing the racer on the bike with the dome, and currently the word mark that we have. So again, both of these will be over here for people to look at in more detail and provide feedback about what they think. Anything you tell us will help. Whether you like it, don't like it, buy, whatever. We want to make it as strong as we can when we hit the market. We don't have a date for when it will hit the market. We're actually planning on perhaps doing a Kickstarter to help first and seeing if that can get traction. The game will also be back there for, you can watch both Matt and my son Derek will be playing it, and you might be able to even play it yourself. It's over there at the end. And I just realized that when I was talking about New Eden, I never even shown the new board, but this is the design for the cover. Most of you probably already saw that anyway because of the giveaways over there, but I'm very proud of this. I had so much feedback from my friends and my coworkers that to design this. Went through so many iterations, and I'm just really excited with where it ended up. So I think I'm kind of at the end of my spiel. I thought that maybe I could open up things to you guys and see if you have any questions or anything that I can respond to. Yes?
I'm so curious, you're talking about how your writing process and how it almost sounds like you get possessed or these ideas just come to you. Do you really not take any creative ownership of deciding and choosing and writing story and characters?
I try to be really careful with it because it's really important to me that the characters are authentic and that I feel like they're being internally consistent. So when a character wants to do something, for the most part, I let them do it. There's something that I won't give away that happens in the third book that I never wanted to have happen, that I would love to have reversed, but it happened in the book, and the character decided to do it, and I had to go with it. I wanted to do all kinds of other things, and because of that particular action, there's a whole thing.
The character exists, and you're the author.
Yes, I am the author, But for whatever is going on, wherever this is coming from,
I'm trying to help you not sound crazy right
yeah,
now.
I know. I don't want to mess with it. It's like if that's how something's supposed to be, that's how something is supposed to be. I almost equate it to just documenting history. Like in the Demok universe, these things happen. I'm just the recorder of what happened. But like I said, anything that happens to me, I can see instantly how it gets worked back in. Whether it's relationships, whether it's stuff that happens to my son, and I'll talk about that in Milwaukee Academy, you know, how things with him and where he goes to school actually influence things that happen in the book, and you can see those ties right away. It's just really interesting. So I try not to meddle with it too much. I find that when I overthink it, it's not as good. And then I'll just scrap it, and then I'll do my process, and I'll sit down, and I'll listen to music, and I'll let it play, and it'll be so much better. I'll be like, okay, all right, fine. My bad. I won't do that again. So, does that answer the question?
So yeah, you're not like forcing an outcome so long.
Right, yeah, I don't want to force an outcome. When I force it, sometimes it can be handy if I am not seeing something, right? Like if the scene doesn't start playing when I'm expecting it to. I'll try to force it to see if my mind comes back and says, no, this is how it goes, because that's happened. But sometimes in those cases, it also means that my creative energy is not at a place where I can tap it to be able to see those scenes play out. And in that case, I just need to stop for a while, live life. And that living kind of refills you. And then scenes start playing again. So.
Sorry, I have another question.
That's okay.
You know, we're seeing the first openly gay character in Star Trek, and Disney's being very socially conscious with gender leadership with like Moana and Frozen and female empowerment.
Yeah.
Are you at all conscious of that, or do you feel responsible as an openly gay author to kind of have that diversity in your writing?
Absolutely. For me, again, I just let the characters be who they are. I have characters in my story who are gay. I have characters that are gay that are in a relationship. It's not something I forced. I just let them be who they are. And again, it comes back to the authenticity. I had a friend once that was kind of helping me with some visualizations years ago with the characters. And again, this is no offense to him at all. When we came to trying to describe what this character looked like, he would say things like, well, you know, he has to have blonde hair because he's gay. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And he's like, well, you know, and he has to have like this little thing. I'm like, no, not this little thing. It's like, this guy is a warrior. He was this muscle guy, and it's like, no, he's not going to be dainty. You know, just because he's gay, what does that mean? I said, we're people first. You know, why do you have to stereotype it? You know, everyone is kind of infinitely unique, right? Like, you can't say that this set of people always has to look like this, you know? And so, I am aware of it, but my approach is, I don't want to hit you over the head with a mallet and say, this is what this character is all about. You know, I want their actions, I want what they say and do to show you what they're about, you know? And I think is a valid reflection of us, you know? Like, I'm not a label, I'm me, holistically. You can't just look at a part of me. Same thing with the story.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Dan.
Hey, have you had any plans to do a screenplay or video game or anything on this? Because it's such a diverse universe that you could easily turn it into any of those, like comic book, anything. You know?
Right. So the original concept was that the material for the first trilogy would be a game. And it started initially as like role-playing modules, almost like Dungeons and Dragons, except for a space theme. And in my basement, I literally have all of the binders for all of the worlds, with all of the maps, with all of the characters, all of the supporting characters, all of the things you can find in those places, all done. It's a tome, literally, which represents kind of my Bible for the universe. Like these are the facts of the Democracy Bible universe. And so it's positioned at any time to evolve beyond the books. It could go back to being a game. It could go to a graphic novel. It could go to a screenplay. You know, what I've come to appreciate is the fact that they're all unique skill sets to do those things right. You know, me learning how to do this has been a great undertaking. It's been fantastic. But you really learn how to respect the skills of other people in other spaces, just like visual designers, right? You know, like this is an art, this is a skill, and I don't have it. You know, I can point it out and say that's good, but you know, most people can do that.
I think you write a screenplay, you can turn this into a movie. It's got a great balance between story and what can be some incredible special effects.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think the fourth book, especially this new one, which is technically the beginning of a new trilogy, that you can read without having to read the other stuff, for the record, is probably one of the most dynamic. It's probably also one of the most well-balanced of everything I've written. When I started writing, Awakening was almost episodic, like an anime series or a Star Trek series. And as you got into Retribution, it became much more action-oriented, and it was a very fast read and really super intense. And I got lots of interesting feedback from both styles. You know, people really liked the more single-tracked, action-oriented Retribution over the episodic version of Awakening. So when I got to Dissension, I tried to rebalance it, right? And people liked that better. They still had some feedback, and of course I took that in and put that into what you guys will now have for New Eden. And so that's why I think this one's really the epitome of my writing style at the moment, because it's taken all of the learnings from all of these things, the novelettes and all of that, and refactored it. So, and I think it would make a really interesting movie. But as the author, I have to kind of do that. So, Kelly.
Well, yeah, as Matt's mom of 60, and not necessarily except for having 3 boys in the family, being a sci-fi person, I find the books really wonderful. I'm almost finished the first book. And the tenderness that Bryce Eastman Carey has. And towards the end of the book, I notice he's having, you know, some trouble. He's in the dark mines, and he's really facing a lot of demons and characters and things. I don't want to spoil things. And his wife, I believe her name is Annika. Annika, who.
He's gone.
She's gone.
Yes.
She reappears to him and soothes him and helps him get back on track.
In a fever dream, basically, yes.
Say what?
In like a fever dream, yes.
Yeah, so it was like a dream. It was just like something to help him get back on track, and it wasn't like a real seeing of her. And, okay.
It was more of a memory. Yeah, like it's more of a dream sequence.
Okay.
As opposed to like, you know, an Obi-Wan Kenobi. It wasn't that. He didn't reappear and it goes to the phone cut. But
Right.
yeah.
But it's really wonderful. We were in the car driving today, and I was at a really fast-moving pace. So like I told them, I'm like, I've got to finish this page because I kept on going over it because you were talking about it. But yeah, many things were going on down in those mines and trying to get them out. It's great.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. You know, again, like I said, I get to enjoy the experience when I initially write it because I see it for the first time. And, you know, in addition to like the tenderness and the thoughtfulness of the characters and their interactions, I also like the humor that has been emerging. And again, Like, I'd love to take credit and say that, you know, I sat down there and I thought for weeks to put down the right material, but like it just kind of happened. So I'm like, okay. I don't know if you can really take credit for that. I don't know. It gets back to what Ryan said about me sounding crazy with something just coming, like, beaming into my head.
I think you do, because I think that you, as a real artist, and I'm an artist as well, but as a real artist, you are really giving them voice without being controlling, and really letting it evolve and flow.
Yeah, you know, and it takes courage to do that too, because think about Star Trek, for example. You know, everything's so safe. A main character doesn't die in Star Trek, except if that person's decided not to renew their contract. You know,
Right?
But you know, it's
Or the whole Tasha Yar situation.
right.
We won't talk about that.
I don't really think about allowing that character, you know, and what happens when things like that happen. Also has ripples all the way through the rest of the next books, and it's very realistic. Same with Menkari. He's not, you know, I'll just give myself Wesley Crusher or some perfect plastic type of character. He is going through moments of very deep darkness at times, and then, you know, and like what he's dealing with here, and everyone can relate to that because it's realistic. It's what happens in everyone's lives.
Yeah. You know, it was so important to have things represented realistically. Our world has flaws. We all have flaws. We all make bad choices sometimes. And a lot of the stuff that we see is so sanitized, you know, or optimal, or like, you know, I'm trying to find the right word, which is ironic because I'm right. And the characters clearly make mistakes. They clearly struggle. And I think that it allows people to empathize more with them and connect more with them when you see that. So I'm glad that stuff's coming through. Yeah.
So in your speech, you mentioned that the last time you were very happy, you slowed down on the writing.
Yes.
You seem very happy right now. So
I
what's
am.
different?
Maturity. You know, I think that as we age, and I'm no spring chicken, per se, you find a different way to deal with stimulus in your life. And before, it took lots of pain for me to be able to tap into it and to write. And now, you know, I find things like an amazing son that I have, and an amazingly wonderful person in my life, that I can draw inspiration from the happiness. And it's different. And the tone of Weun Academy is very different than the tone of Democracy Revival. And I like that too. Because, again, it's about my life influencing what happens in this universe, and I think it's a reflection of where I'm personally at. And I like that. I think that's a good sign. So, yeah.
Well, you had talked about too just the success that you've had, and this is an amazing accomplishment. You know, I think collective jaws dropped when I got to just the amount of work that you've been able to push out there, and very happy, as I'm sure everyone else is, to have you as part of our lives. Do you find that you want to reflect on that, maybe record it for someone else? I mean, you've got an amazing story. It's something that is right to get it out of your system. People's manuscripts live forever. You took that next step to transform that into these books that we see right now. That's amazing.
Well, and in terms of the question, like, do you mean like the reason that I write to begin with?
Yeah, recording the process, or
I see.
sharing with someone else.
Like,
I mean, you took something and turned it into this amazing thing.
Yeah. You know, I really want to help other people to do this, because honestly, it's not hard. It's not. It seems like it's a big deal. I came across Glenn Clovis on a fluke because the previous illustrator that I use infringed on copyrights, and I reached out to him because it was one of his things, and we were able to create a whole new dynamic, and he became the illustrator for me from that point forward. But there's so many amazing illustrators, editors that you can find through the internet. There's so many hubs for authors to be able to reach out and find these other resources. They could easily find qualified people, or even the folks I work with, to be honest, I highly recommend them, to be able to do that stuff for them. You know, publishing on Amazon and doing your own ebooks is a drop in the hat. The materials, the software to do it is super cheap. Amazon's platform is very user-friendly. It's easy to set up a shop and sell them. You know, and once you're on Amazon, you're reaching millions of people around the world. You know, because Amazon isn't just about Milwaukee or even the United States. They're global, and they put your stuff automatically in the international market. Any of us can do it.
Sure.
You know, and I have a blog that I put together that actually talks about all the steps, how to get your copyright, how to legally protect your stuff, the process that I use to design covers, and the importance of the nuance behind how you go about it. You know, that it's not just about your vision and you want to get feedback and, you know, kind of doing some of the usability stuff. Surprise, right? I'm the usability guy. Some say. Yeah, I'd also love to see more of an organized group locally that can meet and talk, because that's what I really wanted, was more writers like myself locally to bounce stuff off. You know, I've been really fortunate to have amazing people and professionals in my life that I could do that. And but I know that's not the case for everybody, and I could certainly use more of myself. Dana, yeah.
Yeah, I just had a quick question around, do you have any type of social media presence, you know, whether it's for the game or the books, where we can go there and check it out?
Yes, so they have this thing called an author platform that you're supposed to create when you want to sell your stuff. So I have a Facebook site that I use as my main news channel. So I'll post things like that out there. I have a website, democrarevival.com, that has all the latest out there about the game, about books, has my blog. I also have a Twitter account. I don't use it as much as I should. People say it's so amazing. I'm still trying to see the amazing in it. I know if other people in this country can use it for all kinds of amazing things, I'm trying to too. So I'm going to try to do that.
I'm the person that told you it's amazing.
Yes. So those are the main platforms. There is one of them on Instagram that people also use, especially if you have a female audience that you want to reach. They have like a 70–80% female following, a very specific demographic. I don't have anything really much on there yet. Though one of the other things about the Democracy Revival series that I think is really important is the diversity of the characters. It's not just about gay and straight or black and white or alien or non-alien. There's also a lot about very empowered female characters. You find very diverse female characters in the story. Some are empowered, some are just, you know, younger girls, whatever, but they're diverse, they're core to the storyline, and I think that's really important in science fiction, because I don't think there's enough representation of women as equals, just like diversity in ethnicities. You know, so I'm trying to influence that in what I see and what I write. So, yeah.
Well, I know that I've always not been a fan of any kind of romantic novels. They just don't do anything for me. So on Instagram, as you know, a older than 50-year-old woman with that demographic talking about this, if you would ever want me to like help you, you know, do something like that, it could be helpful maybe.
I appreciate that. Yes.
I have a question about the time stream where the stories are taking place. It seems to be in a post-colonization period, far back, far into the future, because there seems to be almost no mention of the home world.
So Earth is talked about, but you're absolutely right. In the storyline, at this point, there's been travel beyond the solar system. There's been outposts at Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. They talk about the Plutarch colony that's there in the story. They, me, I. Anyway, I talk about those things. See, it goes back to that whole, like, it's this other thing. It's beamed into my head. Thank you, Scott. There's, in Wiyun Academy, there is a museum that talks more about dames. And I believe dates are going to start getting exposed there in terms of how far in the future are we talking. It's easily hundreds of years from now. But at the same time, a lot of the reviewers of my stories talk about how tangible the technologies are, that they're not unrealistic, and that they could see the path from where we are now to how you could get to something that's a night. And so I don't think it's thousands of years, no, but certainly happens. So I'll find out as I sit down and write more. Yes?
So you're about 500,000 words, right?
Almost. 420 right now.
Yeah, and then assuming that maybe an average of 4 letters per word, we're looking at about 2 million keystrokes. Have you measured your words per minute? Because you have to be going pretty damn fast right now.
I haven't since high school, but I type pretty fast.
Yeah,
But I also make lots of mistakes, right? The workers that are here.
How's the keyboard faring? Is it okay? And if it is, what brand name?
Cosmio, I think, is the laptop that I have. I'm going to replace it with a Sony or something, I'm sure. So. Cool. Anybody else? Okay. Well, thank you. Really great questions. You guys didn't get raffle tickets yet, did you? Derek, can you make sure that? Oh, you did? Did you put your tickets in?
Yeah.
It's like our Sunday events. You have to put your raffle tickets in now.
Excellent. I lost my.
Well, here, Derek, can you?
No.
Can you give them some?
I'll find it.